YouTube, it's Satch. Welcome to Driver 81. I've been sent here to warn you. Welcome to the cockpit of this Mercedes E Class W212 Sport, and I'm going to run through 5 problems or potential problems or things which may well break on this car. Serve as a guide or a pre-purchase video or what to look out for if you're looking to buy one of these cars. My purpose here is not to slate the car, it is not to put you off buying one of these cars. I personally absolutely love this car, but when I was doing my searches, I came across particular sets of information which made me understand the potential problems with the car. Now, before I get into this, one thing I would say is if you are looking at buying one of these cars, I would seriously recommend getting a scanner for this car. The kit I would recommend is the iCarSoft MB version 2.0. I'll put it on screen now. I'll put a link to where you can get this kit in the description and in the comments box. The reason I say this is because this car has so many electrical components and electrical systems, and you may never know that the fault even exists unless you actually scan the system. So if you're going there looking at a car, you want to know if any of the faults are actually occurring in any of these systems which I'm going to talk about, then you'll only know that by getting one of these scan tools. So I would say it's an absolute must if you are looking to buy one of these cars. I would say it's probably imperative if you're looking to continue with upkeep and keep your car in a good condition, and you want to continue scanning the health of the car. So the first thing that is likely to break on this car is something to do with the Airmatic air suspension. Now, it just so happens to be that in this car we do also have a fault with this car. This is a fault which was not identified by the seller. So when I bought this car, the seller said nothing about this fault, even though it's a blatant fault with the car. Basically, I've owned this car for a week now. Every time you park the car up overnight, you go back to it the next morning, every time the suspension is lower than the rear wheels, and certainly lower to where it should be. The rear suspension has dropped completely below the wheel. Shouldn't be sitting that low. And on the other side as well. This is a fault with what we believe to be a fault with the air bags, so the suspension bags which hold the air. I can't 100% confirm that. However, the faults can also occur with the sensors. Faults can also occur with the control unit. The faults that we've got seem to suggest that it is a problem with the airbags, so I'm going to go ahead and replace both of those. It's probably going to take around about a good few hours labour, and it's probably going to cost about £250 just for the parts. If I wanted to put it into a garage, you'd be looking at it easy another £150 to £200 labour, so you'd be looking at just under 500 quid for a garage, or about £250 if you did it yourself, which is what I'm going to do. But the scan tool will ultimately scan this system to tell you whether there are any faults lying in this system before you actually make a purchase. One thing I would need to say about that system is it's not the end of the world if you get home and you buy the car and you have actually got this fault. What will happen is you'll start the engine up and you'll see a message on screen say vehicle rising, so the suspension will fill back up with air and allow you to drive the vehicle. So if you do get that message, just know that that's what it's doing. Okay, the next thing I'm going to talk about, which is likely to break in your E Class W212, is one of the 4 ABS sensors. Generally, this is going to be a lot easier to spot and a lot easier to figure out that you've got a problem with one of these sensors, basically because you will get the ESP message on the message center, you will get an ABS warning light, you will get the traction exclamation mark warning light. These are all sure signs that there is a fault with the ABS system or traction control system. Again though, the only way you'll find out which ABS sensor is faulty is by diagnosing the system. Again, the MB version 2.0 will allow you to diagnose the fault, and it will tell you which ABS sensor is at fault. 9 times out of 10 it's going to be a faulty ABS sensor, but don't rule out the possibility of it being a faulty ABS pump or an ABS module, because I've seen that happen before. That can be expensive. Generally the price you'll pay for an ABS sensor is about £50, so it's not too bad. Again though, labour wise, you're probably looking at about 45 minutes to an hour's labour, so if you're giving it to a garage, put another £100 on top of that. Okay, so the next potential problem with the E Class W212, this happens on a lot of cars. Can't really say it's a problem with this specific vehicle, but it certainly happened with the W211, the previous generation E Class, and it is the buildup of soot in the EGR valve. If this happens, you're probably going to experience reduced engine performance, and you'll probably get the check engine light showing up on the dashboard. Now, if you do get a check engine light showing up on the dashboard, that could be one of many things within the engine module, but the EGR valve is a very likely cause. Now, in worst case scenario, you'll probably need to replace the EGR valve, but if it's not too bad, you can get away with just cleaning it out. What happens is the EGR valve completely fills up with soot, and it means, you know, air can't get back and forwards, and it just completely blocks up the pipe. In that case, then, you know, you should be able to get away with getting a good cleaner. EGR or brake cleaner should do the job, and then once you put it back in, you should be able to use the kit again, the diagnostic tool, clear the fault codes, and then you'll get rid of the check engine light and you'll get back your engine performance. So that's the third thing. So the next problem with these cars is that under acceleration, it generally happens to high miler cars. Probably if you've got, say, over 100,000 miles on, you'll experience a vibration while driving. Doesn't always happen at high speeds, it can happen at low speeds, but you'll generally feel a vibration right through the car, and that is due to the fact that, well, it's most likely to be the fact that the engine mounts need to be replaced. On this car, I can't remember if there's 2 or 3. I think they sell them in pairs, and they're generally about £150, but if you're changing an engine mount, it's recommended that you just change them all. So if it's 2 engine mounts, you're going to be looking at 150, probably about 225 if there's 3 engine mounts. Labour wise, you're going to add another few £100 on if you take it to a garage, or if you're doing it yourself, which can be done, then just the cost of the parts and your time, of course. So the engine mounts are another thing which generally fail on these cars over 100,000 miles. Most of these cars will get to over 100,000 miles, so be wary of that. Alright, so the fifth and final thing that will likely break on this car, and actually it's not really a breakage, and the good news is you won't have to spend a penny fixing it. And I'll put this in here because a lot of people will complain about this. Say for example, if you're going to test drive one of these cars and you're looking for one of these cars to buy, these cars will generally sit for a while on the parking lot, or on the forecourt, or in a showroom, and they won't get driven that often. Now, if that happens, you may find when you first start driving the car that the transmission shifts are extremely delayed, or it stays in gear a lot longer than it should. You've really got to let it drive for about half an hour for the gearbox to warm up, and then you'll start seeing those smooth gearbox changes that you would expect from a Mercedes Benz. This car wasn't too bad, but I have seen a lot of reading online, about them, and they say that if it's, you know, you've got to give it a good run to allow the gearbox, to all the fluids to get in the gearbox as they should, because if it's been standing for a long time, they can give kind of notchy or sort of jerky gear changes, which is unfortunate. But the good news is, if you do experience that, then the chances are it's probably going to settle down once you've been driving the car for a while. And that's it. Those are the 5 things that I've come up with which can potentially break on your Mercedes-Benz E Class W212. I hope you liked the video. Thanks for watching, thanks for sticking with me till the end. I'd really appreciate it if you can like the video, if you can subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Trying to get to 100,000 subscribers, and I can't do it without your help, so I really appreciate any likes, subscribes, comments. If you have any other additions to this video, or if you think you know something that may well break on this car that people need to be aware of, then I would really like to hear from you. So thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.